Welcome back. In the last session, we walked through how AWS deploys software. I'm joined again by Elaine Harvey, Director of AWS Reliability Services. Let's discuss what happens when a service is running live in production under intense monitoring. Elaine, hello again.
Hi.
Can you tell me a little bit about the way that we monitor services at AWS?
You might say we're obsessed with metrics, so we have a lot of metrics. Usually the more the better, but how you monitor those metrics is really important as well, because just having a sea of metrics doesn't help. So we organize our dashboards in a very particular way. We start at the highest level with what we call customer experience metrics. So they represent what customers are actually experiencing and the kind of core customer or business value that they're experiencing from the system and what that looks like. And all dashboards start with that. And then the dashboards are tiered below that, so they go another level deeper, where each of them expands out into additional metrics. And then all the way at the bottom are the usual metrics you expect, like CPU utilization and memory. But we don't start there. We start at the top.
But there are hundreds and hundreds of these graphs.
Thousands.
Thousands of graphs, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And the graphs have alert lines on them?
They do, yeah. We have alert thresholds on really each of our metrics that are important. And those alert thresholds indicate the level at which someone will get paged if that metric reaches that threshold.
And what happens then if one of these thresholds is crossed and someone gets paged? What do they do?
The on-call team member will engage with the alert, and the alert contains links to the appropriate dashboard. So it automatically gives them a trail back to what triggered the alarm, and investigation processes where they can then figure out what the alert means, whether it's indicating real impact, whether it's just a variation that needs to be investigated. So it kind of gives them a crumb trail back to how they can rapidly investigate the problem.
And they might take an action like weighing traffic away from an availability zone to recover from that problem.
They might, yeah. With a serious enough impact, they may choose to just weight traffic out of an availability zone, out of a cell. So there are a number of actions. They might be smaller actions than that. And so there's a number of actions in run books that they can take that are presuming that that is something that the system didn't automatically handle. So we try to make the systems automatically handle as many of the alarms as possible. But there will always be human investigators that are needed. That's why you have to lead the people directly to where they can be most effective and make the most rapid and useful decision.
Got it. So let's say that the alarm has been mitigated, the problem's been mitigated. What happens after that?
That's when we start what we call our correction of errors process, or COE, which I personally love. It's very similar to what people think of as an RCA process, but in many ways much more detailed.
That's a root cause analysis process.
It is, yeah. But our COE process it's very structured, and it has a number of questions that we ask the team member to fill out after the issue's been mitigated, and as they are investigating and getting down to the often multiple root causes of the issue.
What would the first question be in that template that they follow?
There are a number of sections in there, such as extremely detailed descriptions of what actually happened, the actual occurrences. But one of the first key questions that we ask is, how were you alerted to the problem? And was it your own alarms, or did a customer tell you? Because to us, that is a major error. If a customer finds something before we do, that needs to be corrected. Now let's say their own alarm did catch it. We ask a question in there, what could you have done to reduce the time to detection in half? So that's a standard question that they have to answer. And there's a series of questions that we ask. Blast radius is another question we ask about. So blast radius we think about as the breadth or size of the impact of the error. So they describe that as part of the process, and then there's a question, theoretically, what could you have done to reduce the blast radius in half? So we have a series of questions that we ask the engineers to consider as they're writing this up, and those become findings out of the COE. Action items is what we call them.
Got it. And tell me about the section called 5 Whys. I really like that.
Yeah, the 5 Whys. So it's a way of investigating why something happened. So it asks you to explain, why did XYZ have an issue? And then you explain it. Why did that happen? You explain it. Why did that happen? And it's usually many more than 5. So you walk through a system of running down to the root cause, often multiple root causes. Complex distributed systems usually don't fail for one reason. They fail because of a number of reasons. And the 5 whys walks you through getting down to all of those root causes.
And that produces action items that need to be tracked and followed up on as well.
It does. And those action items are followed up on. They have dates. They're very specific. They're considered what you can do most immediately to prevent this problem from ever happening again. And your leaders, the leader of the organization of the service, also gets a weekly report of any open COE action items. So leadership is also extremely aware of these.
And what would happen if you followed the 5 whys process and the end result was Rob ran the wrong command? Is that where it would end?
No, that's absolutely not the right end. We never blame. The COEs have no blame in them. And we consider if a human made a mistake, it's because our automated systems did not prevent the human from making the mistake. We call those sharp edges or sharp corners. And an action item might be to remove a sharp edge so that a future human cannot make that mistake, or at least has guardrails to help prevent them from making a mistake.
Got it. And there's another renowned piece of AWS law, which is the weekly ops metrics meeting. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, the ops metrics meeting is really a key part of our operational excellence culture. It's attended by the most senior people in the company. So our most senior principal engineers, our senior leadership, VPs, SVPs attend this meeting. It's very important. It makes it clear to the organization that this is something that matters to the entire company, not just relegated to some engineers.
And we can all listen in as well. I can join this meeting and learn from it as well.
Yes. So all service teams are required to have representatives there, but anybody can attend. We're there partly to learn from each other and partly to inspect. So the ops meeting is broken into 3 main parts. The first part are wins. So we share our operational wins, and they can be things like we reduced the latency in a certain API by X number of milliseconds, or we found a way to run something more efficiently and reduce the amount of storage that we need for it. They might seem small, but it's important that we celebrate those things because, again, it makes it clear to the teams that this is important to us. It also is a way for other teams to learn and see, oh, I hadn't thought about trying that. So it propagates itself through the team. After the wins, we go into the COE reviews. So that's where we pick a couple, 2, maybe 3 interesting COEs from the week before that we think will be interesting and educational for the wider audience to review. And we review those COEs. In there you have, again, the breadth of knowledge across the company to help ask questions and poke at parts of the COE and learn from the COE. So both improve it and improve the teams who wrote it and who had the event, as well as to allow others to learn from that event as well.
We have this phrase I like, that we never waste a failure at AWS.
Yes, no, we love, we love failure, but you never waste a failure. You're always learning from a failure.
And the last section is something called spin the wheel. How does that work?
Yeah, spin the wheel section, we literally spin a wheel. It used to, back in the day, be a physical wheel with all of the services on it. And that we kind of had too many services to fit on one physical wheel. So now we have a virtual wheel. And on that wheel, we spin the services, and 2 to 3 services are randomly selected each week to present their operational dashboards to the room. It is a detailed walkthrough of what the actual operational engineers see on their ops dashboard. There's the breadth of AWS expertise there, senior principal engineers, people who've been in the trenches for a while and have learned to walk through the dashboard with them and ask sometimes tough questions, but always very educational questions like, that latency spike, what caused that? Or why is your threshold set there when you're typically below that threshold? So to ask key questions about their dashboards gives the engineer an opportunity to talk about their service, others to learn from it, but also for them to learn from the wider audience about ways to improve their operational processes, their metrics, their dashboards.
And why do we spin the wheel so it's a random choice?
AWS has way too many services for us to inspect everyone that way every week, at least at that level, at that broader audience. So by spinning the wheel, any team could randomly be chosen to present that week, which means every team has to be ready. They have to be on their toes and be ready because they could be spun.
I think that feedback loop of measuring, learning, and improving is a really valuable thing to consider. Thanks, Elaine, for joining us to show how AWS operates its services from design through deployment to live in production, and what a large part operational excellence and resilience plays in that. In the next episode, we'll be going back to the risks board to consider how to mitigate some of the software risks that we haven't covered yet. See you there.